Hello, listeners. Thanks for tuning in to I.P.A. Sessions. Today's episode is for all audiences, where I sit down and have a discussion with my friend Darin, and he's going to take us through his process of how to make a short film. So tune in and enjoy. Welcome to I.P.A. Sessions. Welcome to I.P.A. Sessions, a podcast for independent artists. This is a place where I like to try and provide inspirations for practical applications in the entertainment medium. As always, we try and focus on something fun, something new, something different as independent artists that we get to meet. And today, one of my friends, a really fun, awesome guy, a super independent artist, is Darin Munnell. And he's going to be talking to us today about making short films and his process. So Darin, say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone. I figure, you must have like an enormous, audience. It all-encompassingly, I guess, is the way to put it.
This show is just starting out, so we're building it as we go. I think we are part of that audience right now. But it's a process. I hope to one day do a fun little bit too, maybe something fun and bonus. Just talk about my process, how I do this show, and all that good stuff. But today I'm going to focus on you. I want to have fun talking about you and your short films. But before we get there, tell us a little bit about yourself, Darin. What do you do?
Well, I just like to use the general term filmmaker. I've done a little bit of everything, so it's like I usually just like to describe myself as someone who's on the creative side, which usually would typically consist of producing, acting, directing, writing, basically whatever the project needs to make the project possible. So I've always tried to expand as much as I could and understand things as much as I could. I've found that there's certain things I understand a lot better than others.
Yeah.
But, it's a nonstop learning process. And sometimes, you can get really lucky and you can, pick up, like, for example, I was learning how to do grip work last weekend, which was really fascinating, to say the least. Fascinating as in I have no interest in further doing it. But, I think that it's always good to know that kind of stuff. And I think especially if you're going to be a producer or you're going to be just someone who does a little bit of everything and makes their own content, it's really important to be familiar with all the aspects of filmmaking, just so you know. It's been helpful for me in the past. I was shooting a trailer and, we had hired some inexperienced people to be grips and electrics. And I could tell they were inexperienced just because I knew enough about their department to be able to do that. And that's very helpful. And make sure you're not rehiring people that may not know what they're doing.
So you literally got to kind of be a jack of all trades when it comes to making as a filmmaker. You're not just a director, you're all parts. You're the producer, the actor, the director, the editor, all that stuff, I take it.
I'm a lot of things, yeah. And, I'll never credit myself in the credits with everything I do. Probably, I don't think I'd even credit myself with about half of what I do. I take this approach, and sometimes it's wise and sometimes it's unwise, depending on how you look at it, of can you do it faster than you can explain it to someone to go do it? And if the answer is yes, and the answer often is yes, then I just do it.
Just do it. It's funny that you say that. It's been this reoccurring theme since I've been doing these episodes with people, is that everyone at some point just says, you just do it. Just do it. And I love hearing that. So we know that you're a filmmaker and that you've done a short film, but you said that you do other things. What are some other stuff that you've done lately?
I have a 9-to-5 job on a network TV show. I usually don't like to share what it is because it's like just a job.
Yeah, we all have our jobs.
Yeah, usually where I'm kind of like stuck right now is as far as just, making a short film. I have a feature that I'm sitting here working on, and we're kind of just, waiting for things to go through, which is another way of saying, nothing's happening. And then we have another situation where it's like, I just, I have an interest in other things, obviously, like I'm really into sports, and I'm, I have a 3-month-old. He's actually turned 3 months today.
Wow. Congratulations. A new dad.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm not your typical artistic nerd, if you will. Like, I grew up, mostly playing sports, but I love movies. That's kind of how I really got into this. There's a massive influence that came through in the 80s and the 90s, and that I just really got into it. And I said, if I can't play sports, I might as well do this because I love it. Like, I love the feeling of entertaining people. I love the feeling of people interpreting my art. I don't feel the need to project upon you what I'm trying to teach you or what I'm trying to express to you. I think it's far more interesting for you to respond to me as opposed to me to tell you what I think you should be seeing.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Let's not pretend as filmmakers we know 100% what we're doing at all times, because it's not true. I feel like you can have a lot of command over your product without being 100% on point all the time. And there's all sorts of stuff. Like I'm going to try to like wait till you get to more pointed questions, but I could diatribe on a whole lot of things here. I just want to make sure, for you and for your audience, that we're just sticking with one thing at a time here, so they can kind of compartmentalize what we're saying.
Yeah, and I just want the audience to get to know you a little bit. And I know on top of all this stuff that you do, on top of being a new dad, on top of being a filmmaker, on top of having to work your 9 to 5, you also host from time to time on your own podcast. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a group podcast with Kevin, Donald, and Christopher has now been kind of added as a permanent. It's called The Real Short Box.
Nice.
For those of you that are comic book collectors, a short box is basically a box that fits roughly 100 comic books. And we go over all sorts of things that are either comic related, pop culture related, or just information you need to know about if you'd like to trade or sell your comics, what you can expect, what kind of values. We even do things such as, the equivalent of it's like buying a stock.
Nice.
You buy a stock in hopes that it'll rise in the future. And we will even give you a heads up on a number of comic books that you could buy that will only go up in value. I always use an example. One of my co-hosts, Donald, he bought 5 issues of the first appearance of Miles Morales as Spider-Man, and he bought them for $10 each. And he has sold none of them for less than 1,000.
Wow. Should I be interviewing him about how to be an independent artist when it comes to comics? Like, god dang.
Well, he actually does have a web series that he does about the Blue Beetle, who is, going to become a more active character in the DC universe. He's basically, the Blue Beetle was created by Steve Ditko, who of course is famous for creating Spider-Man. And nice. Steve Ditko, when he got fired by Marvel, decided to create a character very similar to Spider-Man. So he's rich, kind of like Batman, but he's a complete smart aleck. And that was kind of to get back at Marvel. But the Blue Beetle became a very humorous character. And yeah, I think there's going to be more things coming in. But there's one character of the Blue Beetle named Ted Kord that had been killed off in the comic series. And it really bothered him as a reader. So he decided to do a web series about the return and the resurrection, if you will, of Ted Kord, just to kind of stick a middle finger up to DC. And it's rather amusing. Because you like to interview filmmakers, he has 3 seasons of this webisode series. So he's been able to consistently keep content up. So yeah, it's just fascinating. It's a fun guy to work with.
We got to get him on. That sounds fun. And I mean, it definitely sounds like it sounds really fun. And also we should get some folks on there. Let's talk to them. So let's get to what we're here for today. You have a new short film that you just put out in some festivals. Kind of just talk to us about it. What's the name of this short? How can people go and see it? And what's happening with it right now?
Well, first and foremost, the nice thing about being the person that essentially owns everything with it, I can kind of freely speak about all sorts of things, some things that maybe I shouldn't talk about, maybe some trade secrets that would be given away.
Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, but I also need to be respectful of everyone who's kind of helped, make everything work out. So this particular short film is called Dying for a Living. It's essentially to talk about how it got started. A couple of my coworkers that I work with were out with me after lunch after we had a very, difficult season working on our show, and they wanted to shoot something. And I know this sounds crazy, but this is fully accurate. This is how things actually can come together. Like, hey, we want to shoot something. I said, you know what, guys? I do have a short film. I wrote it many, many years ago, and it has 2 male leads in it. And I think that the dynamic between the two of you, let's shoot something. But I just want you to be aware that when you tell me you want to shoot something, these things come together very quickly. And if you, for any reason, just take a moment to really think about this. If you, for any reason, change your mind, it is okay. I'm not going to be upset with you. But if we drag this on and we don't get everything we need out of it, that will make me upset. So, let's make sure that we go through with this all the way.
No wasted time.
Right. So initially, the way that this got started, I can go back to 2009 when I originally wrote this.
Take us through your process.
There was a French short film that I had seen that had a kind of a cool idea. And I'm not going to share what it is because, it'll give away exactly what the movie is. But like it had a pretty cool idea. And I thought, there's this one idea that they had come up with. I think we could completely retool it and make it look, way more presentable for, a more wide based audience. So I had written this, and I had hired at the time a director who was a very accomplished director in the rather in the low budget feature horror world. His name is Randy Kent. He's a really nice gentleman. And I had hired a DP, and I had hired a very close friend of theirs to, be one of the actors. And I was going to act opposite of them. Well, about 10 days before we started shooting, that actor had reached out to me and said, you know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore. I just don't understand this character. I don't understand this story. And I said, well, why don't we sit down and talk about it? He's like, no, if it's not going to speak to me off the page, then I can't do it. I said, okay, so be it. Fast forward another year, I was going to shoot this actually up in the Bay Area in a different setting because I just need a setting.
For those of you who are listening and you're not aware of the Bay Area, we are currently in the state of California, so he's referring to San Francisco. Want to let my fellow listeners out there, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, thank you. So when we went up to do that, I just, for lack of a better term, to kind of like streamline the time of this, I had a lot of creative differences with one of the actors. And in my view, they were just wrong. And in their view, I was wrong. So be it. Whatever the case may be. So I told these guys, Jed and Chris, like, look, this is what we're going to do. It's going to come together fast. This was at the end of May. I had already scheduled 2 overnight shoots by the end of June. So they had 4 weeks to get ready. And as I had warned them.
That's mighty quick.
So I telephoned my sound tech, Tim, who always not only does my live sound, but he also does my sound mix, which is incredibly helpful because when we're filming on set, he knows exactly if the sound is salvageable or if it's a disaster, and that saves us a strew of time.
Yeah, you know each other, you know what you need. That's good. A sound guy is good.
But he just, he's way more than that. Like he's like most people that I work with become my friend. That's not normal in the business. Usually they just become contacts, but they usually become my friend. So like Tim and I can have conversations that go way beyond work. And then I had originally called up a friend of mine to be a DP, and he was out of town doing something. And I had called somebody that I had worked with in the past as a color correctionist who does, basically, for those of you who don't know, when you're in post-production and you're editing, you can actually tweak the colors of your shots and your pictures to look a little more, you could completely change them and have your own like kind of style if you want, or you can just enhance certain things or depress certain things, depending on what it is you would like to do. So I had asked him if he wanted to be a DP, and his response was fascinating. He said, absolutely, because he had found a job where he was doing very well financially that had nothing to do with the film business, and he wanted to get back into it as soon as possible. So my telephone call to him prompted him to do that. And then I hired a makeup artist through a friend, and that's our whole film crew.
Wow, that's impressive. What is that? You list all 6 people, I think? 6?
I listed 3. We have sound, makeup, and hair. And then our cinematographer is also our key grip, is also our master electrician, also our color correctionist, and also the finishing editor.
Wow. Well, and the 2 actors, too.
Well, they're not crew. They're cast. So we're very fair to our cast. We only have them do cast duties. we actually had 5 cast members.
Oh, okay.
One of which was the owner of the location, who's a very, very old friend of mine that I've co-produced with in the past. And he actually owned the location, which has, you've seen the film, the location has a lot of personality.
It does.
And that's exactly why we chose it.
I liked it because it felt like, it looked to me like an actual set. I thought you just done something within your home or on a stage possibly. That's how unique it was. Like it felt like a legit set. So and I mean, it is of course a set. You're just setting on a location, but yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, what I can also too add is in post-production, we did have one additional crew member, and that of course was our composer, Oliver Goodwill, who I met many years ago. I've hired for every single one of my projects. He is currently a citizen of the nation of England, but he had lived here for many years, and he was a employee of Harry Gregson Williams and Hans Zimmer,
Wow.
obviously two
Oh,
very popular composers.
drop that resume.
Yeah, so whenever,
He's picked up a thing or two.
yeah, I know his versatility is just stunning. And what I love about him is he's been an actor before and he actually really enjoys acting. He has a great film IQ. So, like, I don't need to give him a lot of notes. He kind of knows where things need to go. And when he had asked me what type of music I wanted, I said, well, just do your thing. Like, you get it 95% right. And he's like, no, come on, give me a little guidance here. And I said, all right. I want you to think of a composer by the name of Lenny Niehaus, and I want you to think of his composition for Mystic River. Now, Lenny Niehaus has scored a lot of Clint Eastwood films.
A lot of my favorite ones.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he has a very minimalist style to him. And I wanted to make sure that he'll have like a piece of a score that'll just catch in your head. And it's not necessarily super creative. It's beyond simplistic, actually, but also it's amazing at the same time. So that's kind of what we went for there. And yeah, I mean, that's basically Dying for a Living in a nutshell. We shot 2 overnights in the dark with a short crew. What my favorite thing is, one of the cast members, I had went up to him and say, hey, we're going to start filming at 9 p.m. And he's like, when you told me that, and I looked at my watch and I saw it was 8, like, you're not going to be shooting till like midnight. Like, I'm looking at your DP. He's literally sitting over there playing like Minesweeper on his phone. Like, this guy is like, really? You're going to be shooting then? 9:01. I'm like, okay, are we ready to rehearse? And he couldn't believe it. And he had looked at him and he had said, this is the first guy I've ever worked with in this industry that I think gets the future of this industry. Now, my director of photography, Michael, is a wonderfully nice person, and he's a phenomenally talented person. He has an engineering background. So the way he approaches things is completely 100% different than most filmmakers do. A lot of filmmakers show up on the day. They might scout a location in advance if it's a short film, but they just show up, they look at a bunch of things, and they take some guesses. That's not how we work. We did internal measurements of the entire location, and we had like a 3D mapping device that we injected everything into. And we were able to create a full animation of the exact camera height, the exact lens size, and the exact blocking, and the exact light and grip placement of all of our equipment into this single animation. And we just would do one shot at a time. We'd adjust the camera to its height. We would change the lens. And we actually took some screenshots recently as we've shot the sequel, where we will have the cast standing on their marks. We will have the viewfinder where you can see where they are, and the animation also in the shot, and they 100% match each other.
That is something super handy to have, for especially for doing a project like yours so quickly. Wow, I love the sound of that.
So on our set, nobody yells. Nobody gets stressed because we have everything properly prepared. We know everything we have to do.
Well, and yeah, and I believe that you set that tone as well. You set the pace. You're the leader. You're the filmmaker. You're the one who's trying to get it all together. And you help set that tone, and you help set the example as well. And then you have these people that you've worked with, it sounds like to me, through many years of experience, that you know that you can trust right away, and that understand how to read you. You can tell them, I'm looking for this, and they go, okay. And they know what you're looking for. You get the ball rolling and they see it coming, and they're right there with you. They're helping you push that snowball up the hill, so to speak. Any problems you run into, you guys have a way of already getting ahead of it. You're like, oh, this is about to happen. Okay, I'll take care of it. That sounds really, really good to have, especially in your back pocket when you're trying to make a film of any kind with any group. It's good to know these people, to have the experience, which I'm sure you've had to learn over time working with many different people, and you find the ones you like the most that you work well with. Thank you for taking us through that process. Thank you for letting us know, kind of what you do. I want to get a little bit into access to your equipment. How does that go for you? How do you access? Is it because of these people do they bring their own do they bring their own equipment to work with you? Or do you guys rent out? Can you take us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, I think the way, at least how we go through our process, is I usually would recommend hiring sound people with their own gear, which is what we do. Tim is fully capable of not only boom recording, but he does all of his own. He also has lavaliers, wireless microphones, and he mixes everything while he's doing. So he actually functions as two people. Now, it's ideal to have a separate mixer and, someone who's recording, boom. But at the same time, too, like, it's not necessary depending on what you're doing. We don't really do, like, stuff we do can seem very complex on the screen, but the actual process of the filmmaking, it's not very complex for these crew. Like, they can do all this stuff in their sleep. So in his situation, also because he has a lot of contacts, so to speak, in the sound world, like, he can get access to certain things like Comtex, which are, headsets when you're watching the video screen, and you're trying to pick.
Yeah, you're hearing the live feedback. Yeah. Or
Yeah,
excuse me, the live playback.
It's not necessary for this, so I trust him when he says sound is clean. And because Tim is an artist as well. Like, he understands.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's more of you take a leap in faith because you're doing this independent style anyway, and you need to get it done. And again, you stated that this is someone you've worked with, that their experience and they understand you and what you want. That's really good to have, especially if you're working on a set with no context, no way to hear it. You got to put faith in the audio equipment and your actors. I like that.
Yeah. Now, as far as the DP goes, I mean, he comes with an unusual amount of equipment. He has all of his own C-stands and flags. He has lights. He has camera. He has lens kit.
DP/electric grip.
Yeah. But also, too, in fairness, for this latest installment that we're shooting, he had to actually rent a camera. We had to rent additional grip gear because it was a little more complex. What happens is like, you can do it one of two ways. You can get the insurance policy, which I personally don't recommend if you don't have the money to get it.
Yeah.
You're a location guy, so you understand this. I know you want to do things by the book. We can't afford to do that.
Yeah, I want to learn the process of how they do it Hollywood style, and then what I can take to apply for myself for people like you when I get into my own projects. Yes. It's good to know what I can legally work within, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. You should make sure you're getting a location that you have unlimited access to, that nobody's going to be looking over your shoulder. And that's tough. Like, it's not easy, but it can be done, as we've proven. Mm-hmm. What I would suggest is, when we rented all that additional stuff, you could either go through an insurance policy, which is thousands of dollars for 2 to 4 days of shooting, which is in our view a waste of money, because ultimately we're here to make money. But what you can also do is we recommend, if possible, either calling up friends who have the gear or going through sharegrid.com, which ShareGrid is essentially, there's a lot of folks that own their own equipment, and it just sits and collects dust, basically. Now, you don't need an insurance policy. You will have to pay extra fees, but they're not terribly high. You can then go through ShareGrid and do a search of, for example, we used a Sony camera. We found somebody who had a price that we liked and had all the accoutrement, if you will, made us happy to rent from them.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the prices are pretty reasonable because the people renting them out don't, they're not making money on them anyway, so they might as well. One other avenue you can go through, I don't know if they're still around, in Century City, there's a company called Film Independent, and if you get their membership, it's like it used to be, about $100 a year, and you have the ability to rent any of their gear without an insurance policy.
Okay, that's really good. I want to go back just a little bit. How long in total did this take you to actually film? Did you say it? Was it more than the 2 days that you said, or was it just those 2 days?
The original took 2 nights. We shot 17 pages in 2 nighs. I usually don't like to shoot that much.
And so 2 nights to film everything, and then about how long did you spend with the editing and finalizing everything?
So that took a long time. That took about 4 to 5 months, but it's not because the project was complex. It's because we had gone back to work, and we work on a very ambitious television program, and
we barely get weekends.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of schedule controversies. So realistically, if we went at this full time, we could probably turn it around in 6 to 8 weeks. But in this case, It took about 5 months. So what happened was I had never edited anything of substantial length. I edited a 45-minute, what do you call that? It was like, it wasn't a short. I can't remember the category when I was in college, but I was also editing with Windows Movie Maker, which is incredibly simple. Okay.
I remember
I
those.
edited this with Avid Media Composer, which is the exact opposite of simple. Avid has a completely different language from every other editing software. My wife had, used it a lot in college, so she was, helpful doing that. But I wanted to edit it myself because I wanted to establish my art, writing and directing. I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that my style was being utilized the way that I wanted it to be utilized.
Yeah. The film reflects you.
Yeah. And, there's, like I said, I wanted to make sure that, my influences like John Carpenter and Stanley Kubrick and people of that nature, like I wanted to make sure that I was getting all that stuff on the screen,
Yeah.
so to speak. And the best way I could do that is by editing it myself and then going to Michael, the DP, to help him do finishing editing. So like finish editing is a very different style of editing. He's able to color his own footage, which was like a big sale point for him. Yeah. So what happens is like, Michael is basically my finishing editor. And, we're not really like specific about giving each other too many credentials on this. So sometimes I can completely overlook, certain contributions that can be made in terms of giving actual credit. But I'm absolutely fine, like admitting that when it comes to like doing credits, for example, I can't do it. It's not my thing. He's such an intelligent person. We actually had to wash and tumble dry footage, as I like to say, through multiple editing softwares, just because of how his brain operates. He can solve unbelievably complex problems with software. So when we were finishing editing, he was actually cleaning up the rhythm. He really didn't cut things out. He just was cleaning up the rhythm of them because because he edits. That's kind of his thing. He knows how to do that stuff.
I need him for the podcast.
Yeah.
For me. I need him for me.
Well, he helped create the opening credits, the closing credits. As far as like sound mixing, that's Tim. That's a whole different kind of thing. But
Okay.
He's incredibly valuable to this process because he understands how to do those things. And we actually, despite me editing it in Avid, we exported it in DaVinci Resolve, which is a very nice editing software that used to be just a color correction software, but it has become an outstanding editing software over time. And Michael is an absolute wizard in that program. So we were able to do some pretty cool things.
Hey everyone, hope you've enjoyed the conversation so far. Just taking a quick break here to play an audio clip from the short film Dying for a Living, courtesy of Darin. A fair warning, there is a little bit of strong language in this audio clip, but I want to give you guys a little taste of what Darin has to offer with his short film. Enjoy the clip.
What are you doing?
Texting the owner. Our night is finished. What the fuck is wrong with you? You have any idea who I am?
Sorry. But we need to talk about this.
What's there to talk about? You think you're the first guy who ever wanted to do this?
But you don't understand what I'm going through. You don't know what it's like.
Wait a minute. You're personalizing everything. This has deep meaning to you, the individual. Am I right?
Yeah.
I'm not personalizing anything. This is a job for me. Do you have any idea how many people have died by my hand?
Well, just give me the package. I don't need to die by your hand. I'll do it myself.
I'm not gonna give you the package. I look like a moron?
No.
You're not ready. Good night.
Here's the money for the package.
Not selling.
No, what if I gave you this money just to listen? Just to talk. If you don't want to sell, you still keep the money.
Talk. You're paying for it.
Thanks.
Whew, goosebumps. You can see it on Facebook Watch or follow the links on social media to YouTube and help support Darin and his crew with their short film, Dying for a Living. Now, back to the conversation. Well, take me through this last little bit. So once you've gone through the process of having this idea and then pushing forward with it, filming it, editing it, finalizing it, how do you put it out there? Because currently your short film is actually in a film festival, correct? Or a short film prize?
Yeah, I mean, I've been told by all of my propagandists, as I like to say, we have 1.2 million views on Facebook Watch as well.
That's incredible. Wow.
You know, we also we have played currently in one actual film festival. We've also played in an online film festival, and we've been accepted into 6 additional film festivals that will not be doing screenings until the fall. As far as awards, we have won an award for Best Cinematography. We've won an award for Best On-Screen Duo between Chris and Jed.
Hey, congratulations. Those guys are amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And we've also won a Best Supporting Actor award for Jed.
Nice.
Which I thought was interesting to refer to him as a supporting actor. I feel like they're both, it's a co-acting thing. They're both very active in this.
They really are.
But so far we've won 3 awards. I suspect we'll win a good amount more. It's interesting, Jacob, because, I'm a big sports fan. I'm a very competitive person. And when I sit,
You don't say.
I sat in our screening block. We had half a dozen shorts playing, and we were playing in a primary. There was a great foreign short documentary that the person who was the creative mind behind it, they were really active at the festival getting people around, and I thanked him for selling out our screening block. So we actually did get to see it in a packed house, and
That's
of
amazing.
those films, 4 out of 6 of them won awards at that festival, and we were not one of them. And I had talked to people, and me personally, I don't care if I win awards, but I think a lot of people do like to have themselves validated through awards, and I try to be as supportive as I can to make sure they get there. So I talked to the finance and marketing department. They said the only award we want to win is most viewed short film of 2022. And as long as we win that one, I don't really care.
I feel like with over 1 million views, you're on track.
But the cast, obviously, they can get a lot out of this when they're out auditioning. They can say, look, we've won awards. We're pretty good at what we do. I must say, though, I definitely think when you make a short film, and this is something that your audience, if you're trying to be a future filmmaker, I would pay very close attention to this. If you don't like the story, if you don't like the characters, fine. That is absolutely your opinion. If you have bad picture, bad sound, bad music, that's not up for opinion. Make sure those 3 elements are very strong, and the other ones, you can just debate endlessly. It doesn't matter.
That's why you have a 3-man crew.
Yeah. When I sat and watched everybody's up there, I saw people who had short films with 35-person crews that had far inferior tech quality to us. I'm just saying that, I'm competitive. So when I see all those elements are up there, and we know our art is solid, because trust me, if you have very strong sound, your actors, there's nothing distracting you from watching the acting.
Right.
You have a strong picture, there's nothing distracting you. So you can absorb it.
You're able to take more pride in your work, too, because you see the amount of what quality and time you had to work with and seeing what others did as well, especially if they had a little bit more of what feels like maybe an advantage. That's a good feeling inside to know that you're still on that level to keep up and have a good time and make your product. I want to ask you, so congratulations, by the way, again, for all the awards so far. And I know that it's still circulating out there as well. What did you do to get your film into a short festival? What can you take me through some of the process of how you submitted it and who you had to go through, what particular festival, anything like that? Can you take me through any of those?
I won't be able to give you a whole stream of information on this. What I do I very much like to do is I'm the leader of the ship, but I only step in when it's necessary. So Our actor took care of all the film festival submissions and had very specific things they were looking for. Now, I'll share a few of those. I wish I could elaborate on them further.
That's okay. You can just give us some of the basics. Just because anyone that's out there wanting to do what you do, like they made a short. How do they submit it? what film festival could they look up? Is there a company, like how do you go to Sundance? Things like that. That's just what you did, what you guys did.
Yeah, the simplest way I could put it, I would go to Film Freeway,
Okay.
which it basically they're attached to 30, 40 film festivals locally, and you can read up on those. I know Jed was very specific about IMDb accredited film festivals. There are some festivals out there in the world like Tribeca and Sundance that there's a good and a bad to it. In our estimation, more bad than good. And the bad that we found was you cannot debut your film anywhere but their festival, or you're disqualified. Now, to us, being that we were aggressively going to digitally market our film, that was not realistic. I'm not going to wait for the possibility we get accepted into this film festival in the fall before we can go out and attempt to create a buzz and create a product and create, some kind of finance coming in. That just wasn't realistic for us. So that I think it's best for at least in our situation, go to Film Freeway, find festivals that you like. You can take a couple different approaches. You can find less popular festivals that you can win awards at, or you can just go play with the big boys and see what happens. I mean, honestly, because you don't know. I'm telling you, when you watch film festival films, trust me, they're not as up to snuff as you would be led to believe. They just aren't. I mean, there are some people that do really good work, and there's some people that do really bad work. And, it just is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's more encouraging, in fact, to actually try and go to some of these short festivals and see other people's works. I feel like that it seems like it would be a more encouraging experience because it's like that. It's that old saying, if they can do it, so can I.
No, it's like if you're a film professional and you're watching some of these short films and you're like, oh my God, these things are doing well. I can't. Yeah, it's a long conversation. I don't want to demean other filmmakers, but I live in reality too.
And, speaking of reality, I want to get into a little bit of a tougher question for you.
Okay.
And again, you've told us a lot of great positive things. You told us about the process, having the street smarts, the connections, the experience, working with people, kind of sifting through who you want to, deal with and all that. And then, of course, the festival circuit. I want to ask you, of all this stuff, doing this project, what would you say would be your biggest challenge, maybe the hardest reality that you've had to face?
I definitely think the biggest reality for me, and I'm going to say 99% of people, is creating a revenue stream from your content. So at this point, because I've made a lot of projects and I work with very talented people who believe in what we're doing, we've managed to cut costs down tremendously. We've managed to get very efficient with all that stuff. Scheduling, we have very dedicated cast, all that stuff. That stuff is hard. Don't get me wrong, that is hard. It just has come easy to us. The revenue stream is hard for us, and it's hard for everybody. A little secret that they don't like to tell you about film and TV is a lot of it loses a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And creating a way to get your money back is incredibly challenging. And also you're trying to keep up with, current trends that you can do. And one of the things we're doing is what we're learning is we are trading revenue right now for exposure.
Okay.
So if you go to Amazon Prime, for example, you have options. You can get a revenue stream or you can elect not to get a revenue stream. If you don't get a revenue stream, you get drastically improved in the algorithm. So when you're on Amazon, which is the highest valued company basically in the world, more people are seeing you.
Wow. That's good to know.
Yeah, in my brain. And I deal with incredibly talented people. I have a producer that is a rocket scientist that works with PhDs all day long. He's lit scientifically minded as they get. I have a DP who's an engineer, this very advanced thinking people. And they sit around all day trying to figure out how is it we can make a revenue stream. And when we look at it, it seems impossible. But we have come up with an 11-part plan. We have solved steps 1 through 6. Now we just have to solve steps 7 through 11.
Hey, it's halfway. That's great.
It is. And that's, so I would say that is definitely the biggest challenge. But if you talk about the physical process of the filmmaking, I just think it's finding a location that you will have free reign over, because we shot at a friend's house and they were just awesome and so welcoming and allowed us to use so many aspects of their house. But also, too, at the same time, that's my friend. And no matter how kind you are to me, I'm always going to be on my best behavior to try to make sure I'm doing nothing to damage your home, to disrespect your living space. I think there's a great deal of discomfort as a producer in that part of the process, being like, oh my gosh, like I want to make sure that I don't mess up a relationship with somebody. And, that to me, I think that amount of stress is probably the hardest part of the physical filmmaking part.
Okay. Thank you for that. Keeping along similar lines of questioning here, is there something unexpected during this process that you had to actually learn in the moment? I mean, you've given us your history. You've told us, what you've done over time, and the people you worked with, obviously you met them and have gotten to know them because of experience. So during this specific project, was there something unexpected that you had to learn in the moment?
Wow. I can't think of anything immediately.
That's okay.
And the reason I say that is not to be arrogant. I most certainly am not that. I think what happens is that I've done this a lot, and I don't know if when you were younger, did you ever play a computer game called Command and Conquer?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you've played Risk, obviously the board game and everything. So
I sucked at it, but I did play it. I never won.
Yeah, and Castle Risk is a lot of fun, but it's just even more pain. So my mind works in that way. I am a very strategically minded person. I foresee a lot of disasters that could come, and most of the time I'm prepared for those disasters. A lot of it is through your screenwriting. You don't want to do things in your script that are going to be stuff that you cannot do. You have to really know your limitations, as Clint Eastwood used to say. You got to know your limitations.
I mean, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It sounds like to me that you are aware of these things for this current project because you've had to learn from previous experiences.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Which is good. I mean, it isn't cocky of you to say that or arrogant to say that, because it just shows that you've had this amount of time doing this kind of stuff and learning from these, and it's only made you better. So if anything, I just want to encourage people that are listening to learn from these moments and let that make you better. You have to take the self-criticism, right? You have to learn to critique yourself and accept these things. Even if you don't like it, you still need to listen to it, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't. I think it is an unwise decision to think you definitely need a degree of self-confidence to do this. You might even need a bit of cockiness, depending on how your mind works. But you also have to. You can't be either of those things without having skill sets. So develop those skill sets as much as you can.
There you go. And I guess kind of moving along those notes, what would you say would be your most valuable takeaway from this current experience? Is it maybe learning how to make a revenue stream? Is that probably your most valuable takeaway?
I mean, I'm going to go with something that's like more of like a personal thing.
Great.
I think that a lot of us, the way that I've always operated is I'm not afraid to call in a favor for the right situation. And there's a difference between a favor and I'm paying you a rate to do this. There is a difference between that. And we do pay people. It's not like a lot of people just come up here and work for nothing. That's just not the case. But it's like I've learned this a lot, Jacob, but I always learn it in a different way every project. And that is, don't be afraid to ask your friends to help you.
I like that.
You want to be selective about it, and you really need to know people's talents when you hire them. I do have multiple people that I know who do sound. Some of them are really good for certain projects. Some of them are not as good for other projects. Directors of photography the same way. Actors the same way. You really have to understand how to put the puzzle pieces in together. And this is like, if you're a sports fan and you're an owner or a general manager of a team, you need to know what it is you have, and you need to know how to organize it together.
Yeah, self-promote.
Yeah, there's skill sets that I bring to the table, mostly in the communication department. I can communicate with people that are incredibly intelligent in terms of like analytics, and I can communicate with people that are street smart. You really have to know what makes people understand things, and you have to pay attention. But yeah, I would definitely say it's the same thing I learn every time, and that is, don't be afraid to ask people to help. But the way that you can make sure that you're doing that in the best way possible is be prepared and make the effort. Don't just call them up out of the blue, hey, I really need help with something. Like, actually prepare something. And as a perfect example, the composer I work with is extremely talented. He can work virtually anywhere he wants. He said to us that we are the best group of people he works with. And it's because of our preparedness, and it's because of our understanding of the process. And Jacob, to be perfectly honest with you, you don't need to pay money to learn that from anybody. That is your own effort. So you put the effort in, people notice.
You know, what's great is normally I ask near the end, what is some great advice you can give to anyone who's wanting to go about doing this? And I feel like you answered two questions with one. So thank you. That is a great, valuable, takeaway for every project. And it's also great advice for anyone going out there to make these projects. And I think the key part that I love that you said is just remembering when you do this, that like they're your friend first. So make sure you remember the value of that friendship and understand that you can have a work relationship or a friendship as well. Like, like you said, treating their place with respect, all that stuff. So thank you for that, Darin. Yeah. So you actually answered my question about advice. Is there any other advice that you would like to give for anyone out there trying to pursue an active filmmaking career, trying to do what we do independently, to do what you do independently?
I don't really have anything specific that I can say, but I can say that there's a number of things that I can tell you that are definitely may or may not work for you. If anyone gives you the advice to do another career, that's not necessarily bad advice. I'm just saying it is hard what you're going to do. It is challenging. It will daunt you in a lot of ways, and if you have a hard time being rejected and you don't have a thick skin, you're going to struggle. And that's just the way it is. Now, other pieces of advice that I think are very valuable. I remember talking to a producer. He's produced massive blockbuster films. I'm talking X-Men, Star Trek, massive films. And what frustrated me about this person, and I'm going to try to be better than this for your audience, is I asked, how did you get into this business? And they said, well, I was working for a store, and it was just a department store, and they needed someone to shoot a safety video, and nobody wanted to do it. So they decided to shoot the safety video. I said, oh, that's interesting. So what happened next? Oh, well, I was producing this big movie. I said, okay, so nothing in between. Like, you're not going to give me literally anything in between that. It's just you shot a safety video. Now you're, a huge producer.
I hear that a lot too. It's like, come on.
So the bit of advice I could give that would be the equivalent of that is just do it.
Just do it. We come back to it.
When people say just do it, to me, that means something very different because I know all the things you need to do. So I'm going to try my hardest to explain what that actually means. So I think as a producer, it's very useful to know how to do a lot of things, as much as you can. So number one, I'm going to even put the finger up for this one. Number one, know how to do a lot of things. One of which is, what can I as the producer do to make this project happen? Jacob, there's a lot of projects that never existed until I sat down and wrote a script. Because a script is a physical item that can make a project happen. So I think it would be very helpful to learn how to write. It makes you a better actor. It makes you a better director. It makes you a better producer. Makes you everything. Books I would strongly recommend. I always recommend Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. It is a great book about structure and how you can learn what story structure is in a film. Making a Good Script Great by Dr. Linda Sager is a huge book when it comes to the little details that makes your script unique and amazing. And then Story by John Truby, I think is also an excellent book that all of the folks that write for Pixar basically use that book. And I would definitely, and it was recommended to me by Brian Callen. So I would strongly recommend that book. It's very good.
That's awesome.
That's number one. Learn how to do all those things. So 2, I would strongly recommend you secure a location first before you start writing a script. Or
it'll help.
it's not the way it's meant to be done. It is not the way it's meant to be done. Trust me when I tell you this. But for example, Dying for a Living, all I needed was an indoor space and I could make it happen. Didn't matter what the space was. Our location worked perfect for it. But it could have been, it was originally a warehouse, moved to a bar restaurant. Same result. So I would definitely find a location that you can shoot in and write a story around it. And then third, understand what it is that you can do great that costs you nothing and what you can do great that costs you something.
I like that.
Your creativity should never be limited. The quality of your actor, for the most part, should never be limited. The creativity of how you do shots, dialogue, all that stuff is free. You don't need to pay for any of that, but you do need to pay if you want to blow things up. Okay. So try to avoid doing that. So I could go on forever, but I think those are three things that if you do those three things, you will definitely be in the process of making a film.
They're very sound advice. No, I love that. Thank you so much. And Darin, I have one last question for you, and that is, what's your drive, man? What motivates you and pushes you to constantly do all this? I mean, you've kind of given us the whole rundown and told us your experience, but what drives you?
Someone told me one time, and I'll answer your question, but someone told me one time that there are two types of people in this industry, producers and consumers, and you cannot be both. I disagree.
Me too.
I just do. I flat out disagree. If I didn't enjoy watching movies or creating movies, I don't know why, I don't know how I could make them.
Exactly.
So I like to tell stories. Something like Dying for a Living is pretty relevant, in my opinion, because there are people, especially in the last 2 years, and I think it's been an ill in society for a long time, that really feel like they have no purpose in this world. And Dying for a Living is a story that really confronts that. Like, what is your purpose? Do you have purpose? These are like really deep questions that we wanted to ask. And I think that this is a problem that causes so many ills in our society. And I really wanted to tell a story that I think could positively affect people to rediscovering who they are. And overall, and this is the answer to your question that you asked, I like people to enjoy what they're watching. I like them to think to some degree, but I also don't like to preach to people. I have my own personal opinions about things. I have political opinions. I have sports opinions. I have philosophical opinions. Those things should not be coming out in my art. They just shouldn't. It should just be what it is. And I believe that what really makes me do this, are there people that have told me to quit? Well, years ago, yes. It happens way less now. But I really like the feeling of telling someone a story and hoping they get some kind of gratification out of it. Some of our material has been deemed a little offensive. I mean, I don't know, people will cite examples and stuff. I don't think it's intentionally it's not offensive in the way like Blazing Saddles is offensive.
Yeah, not blatantly in your face. We weren't going for that. Yeah.
No, we have characters that use language that is offensive language. I get all that, but I'm not so concerned about that. I don't really mind offending you. In fact, sometimes I like to, but I really care whether or not I'm inspiring you or not for one reason or another. That means way more to me. So I'm a very positive person, generally speaking, not foolishly positive, but positive. And I think what drives me is that I want people to be entertained, because I think art is important for that too. And to pretend that I didn't come up watching films and television and performing and stuff, I mean, I enjoy that stuff too. So it's like,
it sounds like you would be denying who you are.
No, it's like, I'm not going to watch Spider-Man and be like, oh, look at that lighting job over there. I don't care.
It's Spider-Man.
I have one philosophy, and any of your audience who wants to watch any of our content that we do, I care about two things. Are you engaged is the most important thing to me. And in that engagement process, are you absorbing what we're trying to say? That's all I care about. I really don't, like, all the other stuff I don't really care about. And I would hope that more filmmakers would do the same. Because if you're not engaged with what I'm doing, it doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Fair enough. Well, Darin, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us about your short film, Dying for Living, which is in the short circuit right now out there. Please feel free to plug yourself, promote the crap out of this movie right now, sir. Put it out there. Where can people go and see this? If anyone wants to reach out to you, follow this film, any social media, let us have it.
Okay, if you would like to see the film, I would most recommend dyingforalivingmovie.com. You can click on the film. It's right there on Facebook Watch for you to see.
Add to those million views, folks.
We have done so well. We actually have done 2 days of filming already for the next installment of Dying for a Living.
Nice.
So the story will continue. We do have a Dying for a Living movie page on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, if you wish to go through there as well. I would recommend a couple pieces of, or actually one particular piece of work. It's called a web series that I wrote and starred in. It's called Lone Wolf McCray, MCCRAY. If you're really big fans of 80s style action films,
This guy right here.
and you like to laugh, I strongly recommend you check out our 7-episode series, Lone Wolf McCray.
I can vouch. It is a funny, funny show. Check it out.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's very nice of you.
That's why I brought you on. I don't care about dying for a living. No. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically enough. I think if you see both of those pieces, I think that you can judge for yourself whether or not you enjoy what it is we do. And I'm totally fine with I think that those two projects are the ones that define us well. I think Dying for a Living is a better overall product because we always improve as we make more things. But I am very proud of everything that I have made. So,
as you should be. Well, Darin, thank you so much. And, I just want to say, please go out there and check out Dying for a Living movie on Facebook Watch. Follow them on Instagram and Twitter. And please show your support for these independent artists. I hope today you guys found inspiration. And Darin, is there anything else you'd like to say before we leave?
Oh, no, I just thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. Jacob, thank you for having me. And I look forward to hearing any remarks you may have. And, like I said, I'm just grateful that you're all giving us an opportunity and a platform to be heard.
Thank you. And I'm still trying to make this a good platform for everyone, so it's still a learning experience for myself. But yeah, thank you again, Darin. I appreciate you taking the time. And I hope that the listeners out there, especially any young filmmakers, any old filmmakers like myself, anyone who's just trying to give this a go, I hope you found today's conversation with Darin inspirational and helpful. So again, until then, stay golden. Thanks for tuning in to I.P.A. Sessions. To help support this podcast, please rate and review, and click that subscribe button to follow for new bi-weekly episodes. And if you're an independent artist out there looking to promote your work or yourself, please reach out to me via social media at I.P.A. Sessions on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also reach out to me via email at ipasessionspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and I hope you felt inspired.